Welcome to IlluviTalks, the show where we lead the conversation about blockchain gaming. And I guarantee, money back guarantee, if you don't learn something new in today's episode, I will give you your money back. I can't give you your time back. I'm so sorry about that. Today's topics are going to be really interesting and insightful. And as always, I've got a stacked panel of experts. I'll show them to you in a moment. They're standing by. Today's episode, we're going to talk about blockchain mini games, fun games. Are those the future, or are AAA games the future? We've got some very qualified parties to talk about that. Play and earn sustainability. Is it sustainable, or is it just money printer, central bank currency playbook all over again on the blockchain? Talk about that. And of course, are we too early on blockchain? Once again, this is not financial advice. I hope you learned some things. Perhaps this episode is a part of your research, but this is not financial advice. So be a smart human being and realize that we are just trying to help you learn as we learn in this space. I told you about that stacked panel. Well, guess what? My first guest today is a core contributor at Fancy Birds. We've got Mike Merritt with the legendary beard. What's up, Mike?
How you doing? It's great to be here. And thanks for the invite. Thanks for the opportunity to talk some fun game and Web3 stuff with you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And we've got a literal medical doctor of blockchain on the episode today. He's got PhDs. He's got all the good stuff. We're talking about Dr. JPEG, the founder of Non Fungible Arcade. Dr. JPEG, how you doing today?
What's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me here. Super stoked to be chatting with you guys today.
I think you win prize for best hoodie right now. I love the design of that hoodie. It is so good. I want it in my life. So there's going to be links in the description of the podcast version, the audio version, and the video version below if you want to check out Non Fungible Arcade as well as Fancy Birds. If you haven't already done that, I did it today. Well worth your time. So let's get into our discussion topics, gentlemen. The first one is this whole topic of fun mini games versus AAA games. If we look at games like Fancy Birds, for example, and obviously Mike has an affinity for Fancy Birds, you're basically looking at fun games, kind of lighthearted games that aren't bringing the, $300 million budget to the table, and instead they're bringing fun and lightheartedness to the table in blockchain gaming. The question I have for you, Mike, to kick things off is, are games like this and this sort of style, or kind of, let's call it quote-unquote mini games style, are those the type of games that are going to bring in the tens of millions, the hundreds of millions, the billions of gamers around the world? Or do we have to have those AAA gaming experiences like Illuvium to really get us over the hump? What do you think, Mike?
You're really asking the question that, I go to bed and wake up thinking about. And, it's going to be a combination in the end. There's more casual gamers out there, right? More people that'll fiddle on their phone or kids that are just playing on their iPad than there are, hardcore PC decked out gamers. That being said, the casual gamers are not an easy breakthrough point to the Web 2 audience. The PC gamers, the AAA gamers, in my opinion, are most likely to be some of the earlier adopters from the Web 2 world. But once again, there's no way to get the big chunk without kind of both approaches, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. That makes sense. I mean, one argument is that, look at the top games in the world and look at, what are they like? Most top games that make the most revenue are AAA games with AAA graphics. But occasionally, there are smash hits like Among Us, for example, that don't have AAA graphics and that end up taking off simply for the fun factor. But those are the minority of titles.
Yeah,
and so
let me
everybody loves Among Us because
the
gameplay is fun.
Nonstop. It's so good.
So let me ask you, Doc, what are your thoughts on non-AAA games and their role in bringing in gamers into this new space where you're asking for a wallet connection? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Well, first of all, anytime I go to a site and it's, like connect your wallet before I'm even able to look around at, I compare it to, going to Amazon or going to, Young LA, where this hoodie is from, by the way, and shopping around and not being able to look around before inputting your credit card info. So I think that that can be off-putting to people in general. But for us, it is really about reinventing the arcade experience. How this first came to life, it was just very much just a moment of like, aha. I was at an arcade bar with my girlfriend and we were playing arcade games, and it's just fun. It's simple, man. I think for gamers since the beginning of time, it's about an addicting game loop. It's about fun. It's about dopamine. It's just about enjoying yourself more so than it is graphics. Because if you have a graphically stunning game that's just visually beautiful and amazing, but you really can't do much with it, i.e. Cyberpunk 2077 when they first came out. Unfortunately, it's better now, so I'm told. But it's
it is better now. I still play the game all the time, but when it launched, it did not meet expectations. But that is a case of promising AAA, delivering some of that AAA, but not all of it. And so when you promise AAA, the expectations are through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And so that sets you up for either like a wild success or terrible failure scenario, don't you think?
Yeah. So I think that the game loop is more important because our focus on retro games is really it's more nostalgia. And you guys mentioned Among Us. You talk about Candy Crush as a hyper casual addictive game. They're doing $1 million a day, and off of something like that. So it's kind of like what you would suggest, Andrew. Are some of these like outliers? Of course. I do think graphics are extremely appealing. Such as one of my favorite games is Returnal. The graphics, make your heart pound because it's so visually compelling. But I don't think that's the end all be all.
Got it. So graphics aren't everything, but they certainly are a good hook to bring people in. So that's the question I have for both of you. Fancy Birds, lighthearted, fun mini games. Come on, who wouldn't love that? And obviously, Non Fungible Arcade, retro appeal. People that are getting older like me remember what it felt like to be in the arcade back when we had to do that. And so I understand the appeal there. Is that hook strong enough to get gamers? This is going to you first, Mike. Is that hook strong enough of play mini games here, strong enough to get gamers to overcome that fear of NFTs? That fear, it's destroying planet Earth, as you're well aware, and it's burning down the rainforests or whatever, and they're going to steal your money, and I heard that was dead, and my friends made fun of it at the recent barbecue, so how can I overcome all of that negative stigma when I'm just seeing a fun mini game here? So help me understand how you can hook people when there's all that negativity and FUD happening right now in the space.
No, so, I mean, look, at the core, there has to be a compelling, fun experience, right? Doesn't matter if you're cranking out tons and tons of different mini games or, something well thought out that evolves. And obviously, making it look sharp, even if it's low res, right? It still has to look sharp. It can't just be a low res mess. You're gonna draw those people in, and really the trick to getting them over that hump of fear is really sort of continuing to make it more customer and user friendly on the approach. Because like the doc was saying, if someone comes in and sees Connect Wallet and then that's it, I mean, they don't come back. I'm fine with Cyberpunk. I played it, but I couldn't tell you if it's better after the update because I played it. That was it. I'm done now. I'm not going to go back. So once you turn someone off with some kind of complication, and our position in history right now is that there is still very much a hyper-educated Web3 crowd that this is nothing to. And then there's everyone else that has no idea what those 12 words are, what they're supposed to do with it. They're getting warnings left and right. I can tell you right now, everyone I know that's not a geek, when they see a little pop-up, they reject it. They hit no, because every time they hit yes, it's installed a virus somewhere on their computer, right? So it's just...
Well, hold on. I've got to push back on that, because as a marketer who's been doing this for the last 15 years, people don't push no on the pop-ups, amigo. People push yes. And if it's an advertisement, that generates billions of dollars per year in revenue. And if it's in a game, that is these such pop-ups are actually the majority of revenue now in the gaming industry. So clearly it works.
I agree with that part, but these pop-ups on the wallets often have a scary warning. Warning, do not copy, do not take a photo, these kinds of things. And when it's a pop-up warning, people tend to freak out. They don't know what to do, and they kind of retreat. So I think as long as the underlying games are enjoyable, I mean, and that's the thing is right now it's like the crowd we're playing to is not necessarily game first; it's Web3 first. But the crowd we need is going to be real gamers, and that means you have to have real meat on the plate, right? And so I see what you mean about people are hitting yes and yes, as more of the default to continue along. I still think if we can make that user experience, that dive in a little easier, and unfortunately, the NFT name has got such baggage. I have a feeling that what's really going to win over is not the first NFT game that goes big. It's going to be the first sort of quote unquote digital collectibles universe kind of thing, and people won't really know they're dealing with NFTs in the traditional sense. I feel like we're still, and I think everyone's working towards it. I mean, I know we are. We're looking for that user experience that just lets people come right in, doesn't bombard them with any sort of terminology that they don't need, to actually enjoy the game, right? Because what does it matter what our birds are technically if you're just there to play the game, right? People that know they're secured by the blockchain. They understand the breeding, the supply, all that kind of stuff, right? But a hyper casual gamer that really, that's all just like homework to them and math they don't want to do. They should be able to just pop right into our universe, really enjoy the game, and brag about the stuff they've won, right? Like collectible NFT or something like that. At least that's kind of how I see it.
Cool. I like that perspective quite a bit. Let me ask you then, Dr. JPEG, and I'm sorry, Doc. In your perspective, you've got the retro appeal in Non Fungible Arcade. Is that retro appeal of, hey, you remember when things were simpler and you use these little coins to play games? Okay, you're going to pull on that nostalgia. Well, now you have to use this digital wallet that does all the things I'm telling you about. They steal all your money. It's killing baby seals, and it's not cool and it's dead. So is the retro appeal strong enough to get people to overcome? Like, isn't retro gaming all about a simpler time? You're asking people to have seed phrases that are too long for even a robot to remember. I'm just being contrarian here. So is that enough of a hook to bring people in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think to speak to a point that it seems like the entire blockchain gaming market is so focused on is when Web 2 adoption. But I think that in doing that, we're neglecting people that are right in front of us. You think that when you think about it, there's plenty of gamers that are in Web 3. They're in NFTs. And they're more aware of this technology and how to utilize it to their advantage, right? So you think about a sticking point, i.e., going to the arcade. There was a time when we had to ask our parents to take us to the arcade. We had to ask our parents if we could go to Blockbuster. So I think that there's always been loops that people are willing to jump through in order to get that dopamine. And with gaming, when we think about our core audience, they're people that are older now, but this is the type of thing that having retro games that have addicting game loops. So we have games that are similar to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time. It's a classic. It's the only arcade machine at Twitch's headquarters in San Francisco. It's
so for people that are not familiar, that's the multiplayer street game, beat 'em up game for Ninja Turtles, where you're just
so good.
You have a joystick, you hit beat up guys, and it's just a blast.
Yeah, and we have a game that's like Street Fighter 2. It's akin to that, which is Street Fighter was the highest grossing fighting game series up until 2019. So these are classics that I think emulating that, but doing it in a way that, we're implementing IP from really strong brands or really strong communities to allow them to play with these characters that they know, like, and trust. I think that the reason why we play Marvel versus DC isn't because of the dev. It's not always because the graphics are, super good, even though as of recently they are. But I really think that it's the affinity for the character, and it's the nostalgia that you feel that's just very heartwarming. So for us, it's looking at how can we just make things fun and make sure that fun is the focus first. But on top of that, we're giving away $500,000 in season 1, which is in 6 weeks. And, people have a 1 in 5,000 chance of winning money daily. So, it's really something that we think there's, excuse me, we think that there's a lot of drive and incentive to get into this. But we really do think about the sense of what you both spoke to is focused on NFTs. I think we need to be so focused on using Web3. Ironically, people like to always talk about, like, hey, we should stop talking about NFTs. We should stop, this, that, and the third. And I do agree because, there's, like Mike said earlier, there is a lot of, unfortunately, there is this stigma that's attached to NFTs. But it's not the end all be all, right? It's people understanding what the purpose of the technology is and how we can leverage it. That is literally game changing, pun intended, for gamers to have ownership over assets, to be able to earn different things, whether it's money, tokens, NFTs like skins, games, and in-game assets in return for their time while playing a fun game.
I like that. You mentioned the earning aspect. That's actually our next topic. Is giving people earning going to cause inflation? Is that sustainable? That makes sense. My take on this is the following. In these rectangles we have here on the screen, we have 3 different approaches to try to bring people into this space, all trying to accomplish the same thing, right? We want to bring people into this new technology. We believe that ownership and having sovereignty over your assets in video games makes it more enjoyable and more fun. Illuvium's trying the AAA traditional gaming angle. Non Fungible Arcade is going to hit you on those heartstrings with retro gaming. And Fancy Birds just wants to give you a fun, simple time that you can just enjoy. Personally, I think all 3 approaches are good, and I want even more. Because the wider gaming market has shown that there's such a large market for gaming. It's starting to cover all human beings on planet Earth, that all emotional appeals and all hooks can work when your global market is billions of people. So I'm glad that we have a diverse approach here on the screen. And of course, I want you guys to succeed because all ships rise with the rising tide. There is an audio version of this podcast. I just want to quickly remind you, it's not just the video version you're watching right now. You can go to illuvium.buzzsprout.com or just navigate literally every podcast platform, and we'll have a clean audio version of this so you can listen in the car. You won't be able to see Mike's beard, but you'll be able to hear his beard through the audio, and that, my friends, is a fully immersive metaverse beard experience, let me tell you. So let's get into the next topic, which is play and earn sustainable? And so why am I bringing this up? So everybody in the world now, because of the internet, is learning that central banks, when they print money, it increases the money supply. And when the supply of money increases, we get this nasty thing called inflation. And inflation is insidious, and it hurts the people the lowest on the economic scale because the cash they earn ends up decreasing in value. Won't go further into it. We all understand. Now everybody's beginning to understand that money printing is bad. So why do I bring that up? Well, in play and earn, if you're, let's say, giving away tokens in a tournament or giving away tokens in daily earning, aren't you just printing money, but it's just on the blockchain? Aren't you increasing the supply of money and it's just on the blockchain? So isn't that just essentially what central banks do? And it decreases the value of that money, whether it's on the blockchain or in real life in a thinly sliced tree in your hand, a dollar bill. Isn't it the same concept? Isn't math just math? Let me bring that up with you, Doctor. what's your take on this? Can play and earn be sustainable given that it's an inherently inflationary concept?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I love that you bring this up because I think it's something that a lot of people shy away from. And what I like to call Ponzi-nomics is what our first iterations were, and I don't think that they were necessarily that way on purpose. I just think that it was a basic dynamic of people not necessarily understanding that like what happened with Axie, that it reflects on the ecosystem the same way that printing more dollars in the United States from 2019 to now than's ever been printed ever, creates problems for the how stable the dollar is, and inflation is bad. So this is actually something that really kind of poked and prodded me to come into this space in the first place. Was outside of making a game that would just be fun and focused on fun first and going through that experience, it's how can we completely avoid that? Because I understand the point, and why there's a lot of anger and hate and things like that from people that are looking at this. Because if it's just constantly number go up with the supply, there's no burning mechanics, there's nothing that's really changing that. You gotta sit there and look at it and say, okay, well, the value first only goes to the people that are there early first, and then everyone else just gets burned.
Kind of Ponzi like, right? So if you're in early, you get the value, and then as more actors come into the ecosystem, the value decreases. So you better get out quick. That's literally Ponzi, right?
Yeah. So I think that the solution really is coming up with something that there's value in other places. We were talking about Pokemon before we hopped on the show. You have this IP which Illuvium is focused on creating, and we have IP partnerships, and these are characters that you care about, like, and trust. In some cases you're highly invested in, and it's the ability to be able to upgrade them. It's the ability to have skins, in-game assets that are really able to draw value, and having a secondary marketplace for that. But on top of what we're doing in Non Fungible Arcade is we're giving away USDC. So we're not giving away Magic Internet money, but we're giving away, well, I suppose it still could be Magic Internet money, but we're giving away USDC.
If it's based on a government Ponzi, then maybe in some way it is. But I understand what you mean. It's pegged to the dollar, and obviously something that's pegged to the dollar is pegged to the strongest currency in the world, even if it's the analogy everybody uses, it's the least dirty shirt in the dirty laundry pile. But I understand what you mean. It doesn't drastically fluctuate in value like a low cap altcoin would.
Yeah, so with our tokenomics, we take money in. So just like in an arcade, we have it set up where token sales, are what drive money for us to give money back to players, and then we also pay out developers. So we focus on hosting indie developers. So we've really created a sustainable economy by making sure that everything is always covered, and in the sense of the way that money flows in and out, like an actual consumer brand, consumer company, versus just printing imaginary stuff all the time. But with that, our in-game assets and our skins and weapons things are seasonal, they're limited edition, they have to be earned. So that really drives demand for them, because when you think about it, some stuff is like God tier hard to unlock, some stuff is a little bit easier. So there's going to be rarity, it's seasonal, and then there's going to be demand for those things. So I really think it's getting creative. It's putting yourself in the seat of the gamer and saying, what would I be excited about? What would I want? And how can I make this for something that would be able to be sustainable for decades to come? So that's what we've done, and we've really taken a look at. So.
Got it. So if the value then of whatever is being earned exceeds the number in terms of if I were to sell this for cash, then at that point, that's the technological transformation that's happening right now. If you have an emotional attachment to it, if it does additional things for you, if it has this rarity, if it represents some achievement, all of that extra value makes it more valuable to you. And that makes perfect sense. I was just at the traditional card shop with my kids 2 days ago to shop for my son's birthday, and all the cards everywhere literally do that, right? They do something. They have unique attributes. They're shiny. Maybe you have an emotional attachment to them. Sure, you can sell them for cash, but for people that play card games, the 80% of the value isn't the money, it's what it does.
Correct.
So Mike, let me bring this up with you. Everybody loves those birds.
Birds.
But if people are earning nonstop, do the value of the birds and the bird ecosystem eventually crash like fiat currencies? What do you think, man?
So, if it was an infinite supply situation, then absolutely we would be doomed. But luckily, a lot of the core contributors had a background in DeFi, so we had watched a lot of the hard-learned lessons, which is why we so at the time, play to earn, whatever you want to call it, was really the hype term. We knew we had to distribute the sort of higher level interaction token with our game, universe. So this allows for like breeding and all that. So what we were able to do is kind of jump on and do a play and earn approach, but mostly for the distribution of our tokens to those who are interested in participating on a deeper level. Because as I was saying before, with our app on the iOS, you can jump in, play the game. You don't have to worry about NFTs, tokens, any of that stuff. You can just fly, play. If eventually we're going to have the economy with some loot boxes so you can get rare NFTs. But this is more like a first stage approach. So our first stage is to get a user base that supports the game, right? Because if you think about it, the way we onboard new users is through the bird breeding program. So we need people to breed if we're expecting to grow. And it's not a Ponzi because it is balanced, right? If the prices are too low on breeding, people aren't going to breed. So that naturally controls supply on the birds. And then with the token itself, it has a finite number, and we've actually got burn mechanisms built in. So technically, over a long enough period of time, it's actually a deflationary token. And you're going to find that as more and more games are introduced and as the game universe gets, richer, there's going to be players that enjoy it on much different levels. There's going to be people who are in there to craft and collect resources, and they're going to be playing on a different level than the people who are there just to get the ticket entries. And as the doc was saying earlier, with their prizes and giveaways and that sort of thing, we've had our eye on the esports approach since the beginning. So even though the Fancy Birds game was not the most lending itself to tournaments, we've had tournaments on it since the beginning. And those tournaments, with the introduction of our next Sky Wars game where you can fly your birds around and fight, it's going to go to a whole new level, right? A whole new sort of skill-based interaction. So I think it's really about evolution, right? And obviously there were just so many cash grabs, right? Everyone threw something out, minted something, everyone ran with the money, and now you've got these, ghost towns of game communities. But from the very beginning, we sort of understood how this evolution was going to work. We understood, and look, every project I advise on, any tokenomics I've helped anyone with, I stay away from infinite supply personally. I just think it's a much easier economy if you understand what you're working with and what the potential. Now, once again, that's not discussing stable coins or any approach like that. That's obviously its own sort of unique thing. I just mean with potentially inflationary or deflationary tokens. So sort of inflationary while supply is going out, but then it's going to reach a point where it goes deflationary, and you kind of gotta go where the audience is, right? If you want to attract people. So it was kind of like a sneaky intro in, and there will always be the opportunity, I think, for people to earn if you once again want to participate within the ecosystem on a higher level. If you manage birds, flocks, you're really into this. But I mean, then it's, you got a job, right? And the job is basically helping us onboard new customers and users. But once again, there's potential for people to participate in many different ways. But no, the play and earn, the straight play and earn model where they're just infinitely giving out tokens, I don't think that can ever work personally.
That makes sense. I mean, Illuvium's approach, there's some amount of tokens, I think it's 10% that's allocated to play and earn, but it is yet to be determined how those pool of tokens will be used exactly.
Yeah, smart.
So we're kind of gonna see how things play out, I believe, and of course, that needs to be voted upon by the council, and so that's different than a lot of projects that have allocated 20, 30, 40% in some cases, which to me, those numbers can get into dangerous territory because now you're bound to flood 40% more money supply, 30% more money supply into your game ecosystem. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. But the thing that I want to emphasize here, and I'm challenging us because I think I want us to be the best we can possibly be, and I want to shore up any holes in any arguments people have about this space. Let's be clear. If you're playing a legacy game where you don't own anything, that's worse than inflation. You literally just put your money in and get nothing out. There is no inflation, right? So that's actually far worse than anything that's currently being offered in Web3. Even if you put your money into a Web3 ecosystem and you don't get any money out, at least there was a possibility of getting some money out. That's still better than what Web 2 has to offer. And so for that reason, a lot of people criticize, they've criticized Axie, and maybe rightfully so, that people were thinking they could make a living or have it be a job, and then they were getting upset that they weren't making as much money. Well, how about every other video game that's ever existed? Are you making any money playing those? Was there even a chance? And the answer is no, of course. Now, obviously, there's the issue of did they market it as being an earning thing? Okay, but the point about the fundamental monetary policy, let's say, still stands. You always get zero in legacy gaming, and at least in Web3, you have the chance to cash something out and maybe move it to another game if you're ready to play another video game. Cool.
Yeah,
I do need to, we have what I think is going to be the most interesting topic. Are we way too early on blockchain gaming? Viewers, you included. Are you too early? Are we all the sacrificial lambs that come in here? Are we the pioneers that die of dysentery on the way to the West? Are we the early internet guys in the 80s that ultimately become irrelevant only for Apple and everybody else to make all the money down the road? Are we those guys? Are we that early? We're going to answer that question after a word from our sponsor, Illuvium. So we built IlluviTalks V2. If you guys have not already checked out the new IlluviTalks, watch this video. We'll give our guests a break and we'll be right back with that interesting topic. See you in a second.
Illuvium Game Studio is developing a game that combines an exploration looter with a collectible auto battler, where gamers can play and own rewards. We are excited to introduce version 2 of the IlluviTalks, our official Illuvium market exchange. It features intuitive analytics, enhanced navigation, improved maps, and additional functionality.
That's it, and obviously incredible voiceovers from me, turning it up a notch. Okay, so let's talk about. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, your voice is great, man. I need to work on my voice.
You've got to get close to the mic. And anyway, I got to be careful. Yeah, like smoke a pack of Marlboros. No, don't. Okay. I've only done 1,000 voiceovers, so it only took a little bit of time. Okay, so let's talk then about, are we too early? So I think all of us here are old enough to remember a world where things weren't social media sized. It wasn't Web 2 sized. We remember Web 2. Some of us might even be ancient enough to remember before Web 1 even, right? And so as those technologies progressed, we saw, basically this niche space, the internet in the 80s, where maybe it was going to work out, maybe it wasn't. It was used in academic spaces. Then we saw in the 90s, internet being used in homes through things like modems and ancient technology. And then we saw Web 1 emerge, where average people used it in America online. They were instant messaging each other, but there was no real interaction. And then, of course, Web 2 came along, where everyone could then interact with the internet in the early 2000s. Each one of these phases, let's say, of Web 0 to Web 1 to Web 2 took an entire decade to play out. It took a while. And so now that we're in the 2020s and Web 3 is starting to emerge, are we the guys that are here way, way too early, and this doesn't actually become a thing for like another 8, 9, 10 years? I'll kick it over to the doctor of JPEGs and ask you your thoughts on that. How early are we on this whole blockchain gaming and Web3 thing?
Yeah, if you remember, going back to those times, they're great times when you think about it. They're revolutionary times with the internet and the fact that, we take it for granted, but we have the technology to do what we're doing right now. The three of us chatting in different places and people all over the world watching this right now. We take it for granted, but there was a time we didn't have it. I like to use, Mark Cuban as a reference, but, Mark Cuban had an idea right when the internet popped up and was around, where he was going to make a streaming platform that showed basketball games in sports and stuff like that. And he was just tinkering around, but I think that his focus, his idea was around entertainment. It was around providing a service for people. And this was right around the era of when the internet was starting. He put $8,000 into the company, and he sold it for $5.4 billion. So,
that's not a bad return. That's not bad.
Yeah, that was one of the first streaming, platforms, and that was before streaming was actually a thing, and it was called that. So, we have Twitch now. Twitch was acquired by Amazon in 2014, and it's still going strong. We have YouTube.
For $1 billion. Yeah, YouTube was acquired for $1 billion. Twitch was acquired for $1 billion. But their value has far exceeded that initial acquisition value since then, because the space has continued to grow.
Yeah. So do I think we're early? Yes, but I do think that we are pioneers, and I think that everyone that comes into this space, you need to ask yourself, why are you here? And for us, it's to provide a fun experience. We're looking to empower gamers and game developers. Gamers can come in and they can earn stuff, in-game assets like skins and weapons, again, interacting with IP that they love inside of our ecosystem. And again, in season 1, we're giving away $500,000 in USDC. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities. You're 100% right. We are just at the start of this. We're several years into this, and we're figuring things out. And I think the one aha moment is we're all trying to figure out sustainability now, because we want people to come in and be able to enjoy our games and our ecosystems for decades to come. So with us being early, I think that it's how you leverage that opportunity. It's how you look at it. You can squander it and, be the person that's just trying to make a gajillion dollars, and that's that. Or you can really focus on providing entertainment, and you can move and shift with the tides, because Axie was, in a way, a sacrificial lamb, and we should all forever be grateful for them, because they showed us the do's and don'ts. And I think that, not every single game needs a token. This is something that needs to be repeated a million times a day. You need to focus on what's the outcome you're looking to create for gamers, and what's the impact you're looking to have on the greater, gaming ecosystem when it comes to gaming in general.
Not every project needs a token. I haven't heard that many people say that. I like that. So it sounds like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you think we could be Mark Cuban making a streaming platform before the .com boom and bust early. Is that what you're saying? Are we that early? Or have we not even seen the boom and bust yet of metaverse, let's say? Well, answer that, and then we're going to kick it over to Mike. I want to get his perspective.
Yeah, in regards to the metaverse bust, I mean, Meta put $10 billion into something that, to them, that's not a whole lot of money, but, they're really trying hard. But it's the fact that I don't think that they understand this technology. They're just trying to move with it, because Facebook's, I guess, Meta no pun intended, but it's always been to kind of copy things, but try and do it in their own way. They copied Instagram, they copied Twitter, they copied Snapchat, with all of their tech. So I think that they're just trying to do the same thing with creating a metaverse, but I think we're far out from that. I think gaming is really the wave is starting to curl, and I think that there's a lot of people positioning themselves with 50 years of industry experience. Like one of our advisors, Sean Capel, and he helped bring free to play to the United States in 2014. And I remember that was like, people were like, free to play, this will never work, this is ridiculous. And there's always
I totally remember. Everybody thought free to play was a scam, and then it took over. Everybody thought mobile games were a scam, then it took over. I remember people when SimCity came out a while back. Remember when they were pissed about how you had to log into the internet on SimCity? Everybody's like, I'm never buying one of your games again. It's laughable now. I got to be honest, the whole Web3 gaming and NFT gaming space remind me exactly of that. Like, new technology, I hate it. 5 years later, every game has it, and you're throwing your money at the screen.
Yeah, there's pushback. There's pushback, and then there's adoption if it's done right? So I think that's the biggest thing. That's the opportunity here. And, some people are going to squander it. To quote Gary Vee, 99% of the things that are here are going to be gone very soon. But, there's an opportunity for us to provide value and for us to help shape the gaming space. And that's what we're really excited about at Non Fungible Arcade.
I like that. If 99% of the things that are here right now will be gone, then that must mean we have not seen the boom and bust cycle yet for this space. So let me kick it over to you, Mike. How early are we? Are we 1980s guys internet? Are we 90s guys internet? Are we early 2000s guys internet? How early are we, let's say, on this new emerging space?
Yeah. So since my memory is long in crypto, let me start just by offering a little more perspective. So I think it was like 2016, early 2016, maybe even 2015. Rare Pepes was actually an NFT. They didn't call it that at the time, I don't think, but it was art on the Bitcoin blockchain as a colored token through Counter Wallet. So I participated in that, and that was way too early because I don't think anyone even remembers that now or could find one. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure the Pepe's guy has been suing everyone crazy, so no one would mess with it anyway. But
didn't Rare Pepes get taken over by extremist groups, and wasn't there this whole dramatic situation? Anyway, that aside,
the whole thing with it, I remember that. That's crazy, right? But anyway, it became a thing. Now it's gone, and I actually decided when Ethereum, was really getting hype early on, that I wanted to make something better than a rare Pepe, and I called it Rare Breeds. And I put some people together, and we were making these 3D models and giving backstory. They were going to be breedable pets that you could take into any video game, right? Or Decentraland was just starting to build its hype at the time, kind of early rumors there. And I remembered Second Life, and I thought, man, what if we could make these NFTs, their pets, blah blah blah. So we were about to announce, and CryptoKitties
still going.
CryptoKitties launched and crushed the Ethereum blockchain, and that just we were like, well, forget it. There's no point doing this now. So we left it, and that was obviously way too early because that idea we would have sunk if any money we raised into it, any sales, that would have been blown, and there would have been no place to take those NFTs. There would have been no open sea. So that is 80s, right? Late 80s, early 90s.
I see.
Internet,
so that's
right?
That's like Web 0 right there is what you're describing.
That leap, that first leap from, the inklings of Web 1, right? And now I think we're making the leap. I think it's starting to happen from the Web 2 to the Web 3, and we're kind of in like 2.25 maybe, or 2.15, somewhere in there,
Right.
But it's happening. But yes, there's going to be casualties. I think the difference is that you have a much larger and more mature overall internet market. So I think it's more. I don't know that there's going to be this apocalypse level event from here. I think if you look at the stunningly bad numbers for games and startups in general, that it's just going to continue to be a 90 to 99% churn, right? And now,
Right.
now you've got to be a competitor. The ICO days are over. You cannot just have a catchy token name and get millions of dollars. That was a time, it happened. Bravo, bully for those guys, but that's just not the game anymore. You have to have a product, right? I mean, or at least the guts to scam people with the promise of a product. But yeah, it has to be something that functions at this point. And I think even at this point, a white paper is not going to cut it. I think at this point, if you say you're going to build something, you have to have an MVP before you take it anywhere, or you're going to look like a total scammer, in my opinion. And I don't want to dishearten anyone from trying to raise privately. I just think, but to me, that's a big sign of maturity, right? Like, that's honestly where we should be getting to in order for people to trust this process, to trust these products, to trust, to participate in our game ecosystem, and that you really are going to come out ahead of Web 2, right? You really are going to own these items that you create or find or earn within these games, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to be stuck with a basic churn of failures, right? Some 90% rate of failures constantly happening from here on out.
That makes sense. I mean, 90%, like the stat you're quoting is like 90% of startups, literally, I think all go out of business within the first 10 years entirely.
Yeah.
Or within the first 5 years, I believe. And then 90% of those go out of business in a 10-year timeline. So, yes. And yes, all these projects that are happening right now are essentially startups. I like what you said about needing a real product, needing something that people can actually use. I know both of your projects, when you go to your websites, you can literally click play and you can play. And that's a product that people can experience today. And so the previous metaverse bull run, people were just throwing money into whatever. Like, if they heard from a friend that it was going to be great, they got in. If they got hit with some bots on Twitter, they got in. A lot of the educated YouTubers that I like to follow that are smart people, they were quoting Discord followers as like a investment metric or something. I'm like, what are you doing? So I think we need to get back to like what really matters in gaming here, which is, do you have a good game that's fun? Number one.
Right.
Number two, are gamers playing that game and are they enjoying it? And number three, do you think this intellectual property has the potential to last 5, 10, 15 years? And is it original enough and sticky enough to where they can build multiple games with that franchise and have it last, so it's not just a one-hit wonder? That's the type of stuff you'd look at in, normal legacy gaming. If you were looking at traditional gaming companies, you want to see, and then of course, once their products are in the market, you're looking at recurring revenue and growth. So we're not there yet, where people are looking at recurring revenue and growth, but I think in the next phase, let's say 3 to 4 years from now, that will be the metric that people will look at to understand whether projects are doing well. So as a consumer, people, this next bull run, whenever that is, they'll have a lot of actual video games to play this time, as opposed to imagining a world where these games will exist off of a white paper, and that's exciting.
Right.
And so
Super exciting.
it is super exciting. And so that's why Illuvium is going as fast as we can to take all 3 of our games to market simultaneously. To try to show everyone that you can make multiple games and have them be interoperable with each other, and deeply interoperable with each other, and to show that concept to the market. Don't just imagine a world where that happens. It's right here in front of you. So you need to show it now. And so that makes me worry about projects that have a 5 to 7 to 9 year timeline and are being super ambitious. How do you survive in a market coming up where people need to see the game today?
Yep.
So let me just ask you one last question here, guys. Just going really direct at it. Whenever the next wave of interest is, we can call it a bull run, we can call it a wave of interest. It's kind of both at the same time, right? In the previous bull run, Microsoft was saying their metaverse. Sony is saying their metaverse. Everybody was metaverse at that time. Whenever that next crazy hype phase happens, is that our .com boom and bust? Is that going to be the fever pitch of this space and then the bust afterwards? I'm really curious to know what you think. Or was what we saw last year the .com boom and bust? I'll give that to you, Doc.
Yeah, it's really tough to say. I think that we can try to predict everything we can, but the path to success is to control what you can. So pretty much is everything you just said that Illuvium's focused on. I know that Mike at Fancy Birds is focused on. We're focused on an Non Fungible Arcade is creating an experience that people are going to be willing to invest their time in. I don't think that it's people think enough about the fact that people are spending their hard-earned money and their valuable time, playing these games and trying out these games. Our focus is to give some type of value back on your time and your interest in that ecosystem. But I definitely think things are coming to a point where, again, like I said, that wave is curling. I really think that we are early. I really think that we are going to see this massive boom. You have a lot of companies that are too large to pivot on a dime, like the three of us, have the benefit of doing. But they're doing plays where like they're setting up shop through companies, whether it's IP agreements, like things that we're working on with larger quote unquote Web2 brands. You've got things where Web3 games or blockchain games are setting up shop in like Epic Games Store, and there's a lot of ties and there's a lot of things being tried all over the place. So I really think that as we all continue to try and figure out what is the most creative value that we can give to gamers using blockchain technology, and I'm really excited to see that continue to just it's forever a journey of just creativity and looking at, if I'm a gamer, what would make me want to log in every single day? What would make me want to tell all my friends about this? Like, why would I want to come back and play it? And it's thinking about that day in and day out. And yeah, I think things are just getting started.
Doc, where can people find you and your project so that they can follow you if they liked any of the words you said today?
Yeah, so on Twitter is where we're most active. Our company, Non Fungible Arcade, is at NF Arcade on Twitter, and then I'm at Dr. JPEG. So, I drop alpha from time to time, including gameplay footage, teasing our games since we're going to be launching with 4 games. And I also drop a lot of D's Nuts jokes. So
perfect.
You can come hang out with me on there.
Perfect. D's Nuts jokes. Perfect. Thank you very much. Mike, final question to you. Was the wave of interest we saw last year our .com boom and bust, or have we yet to see that fever pitch of people going absolutely effing bananas for the metaverse again? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a toughie. What might determine it? It might determine it by how deep and dark this current bear market and possible recession gets. Because I think if we shake out enough of the projects that were maybe borderline quality or worse, that could be it. You're going to have a more discerning eye when interest returns, and there's not going to be a gold rush mentality. So, but if we drag a lot of these sort of perhaps ultimately doomed projects along with us, and exuberance returns before they've bailed completely, I think then we might have enough sort of trash in the chute for another overflow dumpster fire kind of thing, and then there could be maybe one more big apocalypse. But my gut is telling me that the money that's coming in now is already more discerning.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to get real gaming that's there for the actual game, then it's going to boom and bust on those rights and not on the crypto market's whims. Once again, just in my opinion. But that's the goal, obviously, I think, for us and many other quality projects is we want to be tied to the quality of our games, the entertainment of our games, and what we provide to our players, more than we want to be tied to the whims of overall crypto markets and over exuberance and panics and all that.
That makes sense. Where can people find more about what you're working on, Fancy Birds, etc.?
Fancybirds.io. You can start there, find everything else we need. We also fancystudios.com, and then we have Fancy Birds.io on Twitter, I'm at Mad Badger Crypto on Twitter. I usually listen more than I talk. I found that's a good way to get through life. But since we are kind of, at this low point, I think I probably will be speaking more on Twitter just to kind of help any new people in with, safety, security, sort of navigating all this. I kind of feel an obligation as an old hand from the crypto markets to pass down some of the knowledge and wisdom. But I'd love to see everyone out there. And of course, you can get our Twitter and everything off the website, Discord off the website, all that. Fancybirds.io.
Perfect. Fancybirds.io. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. This was a great discussion. I love getting honest thoughts from people that are actually building something in this space and aren't just speculators, aren't just studying projects and think they're an expert. You guys are actually making something happen. And I love what both of you had to say a moment ago when I asked you the pointed question about, is there going to be another metaverse hype phase? You both are focusing on building a great experience and a great product first. And so that's what the winners are going to end up doing at the end of the day. And anyone who's thinking about the financial aspects or how can I make a quick buck, maybe you get a buck, but it's going to be quick and it's going to crash after that. Just like in any business building, right? If you aren't thinking about the client experience first, the customer experience first, your business ultimately fails. Thank you for your thoughts there, guys. I really appreciate it. And to all of you that watched this episode, thank you for watching. I told you I would give you your money back if you didn't learn anything. I guarantee you learned something, didn't you? You did. You learned something.
Thank you, Andrew.
You got it.
What a great show, man. This has been such fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah, plug my show for me. Thank you. Everybody subscribe.
This guy's an amazing voice. This guy is awesome. We talked beforehand, and
keep going.
If you guys can tell, like on the show, Andrew's amazing. So hit the subscribe button. Make sure you. You guys
oh my gosh, this is great. Man, that was awesome. You both are going to be return guests, especially with a pitch like that. Thanks, guys.
I love it. Thank you.
I'm gonna boot you out for a minute and play our little logo thing as we awkwardly transition out of the episode. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you at the same time in the next episode of Illuvium, or IlluviTalks rather. That was awkward. Thanks for watching.